Reverend Carpenter, hit your button there. We're going to have you.
I'm on it.
All right. Lead us off.
Heavenly and gracious Father, we come to you today and we just thank you for this day that you have made. We thank you for this group of people that sit up on this committee that are going to listen to things that will help Georgians. And we just ask for wisdom. We just ask for your hand upon us and help us to get through the next month without strangling each other. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, Senator Steele, we're going to do you first since it should be quicker. Plus, I can start off complaining if you come first. Could have saved you the trip if y'all would have passed this bill out of the Senate. So both these bills are actually deja vu all over again. Senator Steele's bill is identical to Jut Howard's bill, but don't want to steal your thunder on this. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's exactly what it is. So you've already heard this bill, and all we're doing is allowing folks who are appealing a judgment on an unemployment claim to be able to opt into using electronic responses. So instead of relying on snail mail in the 15-day window, they can opt into email responses, making it much faster. We're not changing the days of response time, but currently we have about 8,000 pending claims across the state. Last year they dealt with close to 70,000 claims, all done by snail mail, and so we will shrink the amount of time that people have to wait for any sort of response on that. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, got a quick question. Push your button.
24. Senator Steele, this maintains the same thing I asked before of maintaining these responses for retention for any possible litigation up to standard time, just like we normally do everything else.
It's still 15 days. It doesn't change any.
Yeah, but I mean for long term, like
they can still appeal.
No, but I'm talking about like if something happens, we will keep these responses somewhere stored electronically in case something comes up in the future.
So actually a great question, and I know this just anecdotally, but the Georgia DOL is in the process of moving to an entirely automated system, and they are launching a new platform later this year or early next that will allow them to be able to track that indefinitely. So right now it's all being done manually by paper, so this is going to allow them to have a digital fingerprint on all of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Still, isn't it true this bill would give the commissioner the power to modify time limits for an unemployment determination for any reason or no reason at all?
I don't believe that's accurate. Where in the bill would you infer that?
So, when we're saying issue date, there's no specific timeline. After on multiple parts throughout the bill, for example, on line 48, final 15 days, that then gets cut out after the issue date printed on the decision. And then given the definition of issue date on line 10 to 17, it seems to give the commissioner a lot of discretion as to when the determination date could be without real parameters or safeguards.
Yeah, this came up on the floor, actually, with Senator Merritt. And then we talked afterwards, and I believe your research team is what flagged that. There was a misunderstanding on your team's part with that, because when we talked to the chief legal officer at GDOL, what they explained was what is struck when it says date the decision is mailed, because we're using electronic service, it's on the issue date printed on the decision. So because it is now emailed, it's printed on the letter that is being emailed to them. But the applicant is opting into this. So if they still want to snail mail it, they can, but they're losing days in their response time because it's still 15 days. So if they're choosing to continue to use mail, that's cool, they can do that. but they're losing at least a week or more in that 15-day period. So we're not altering the 15 days. This doesn't take away from anything, and it does not give any unilateral powers or anything else to the commissioner.
Yeah, that's how I read it. It's not changing the authority. It's just making it consistent with if you email something, you're using from the date. I mean, if you're mailing something, it's from the date. If you're using the email, you're just saying from the date it was printed. So I don't think it's changing the authority at all.
A follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So on lines 13 to 16, where it says the promulgation of administrative rules, the commissioner is authorized to waive, alter, extend, or set aside the time limit provisions of the law by which a determination or decision of the department becomes final. Would legislative counsel be willing to offer a written opinion just to clarify your understanding of the bill?
I mean, they can certainly offer an opinion on it. This has been vetted pretty thoroughly.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah, you want to chime in, or?
I can research that.
Okay. Now in Sarah's hand. Is that McLean or Holly? Representative McLean?
Thanks. Right there, Mr. Chairman.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my only concern is the 15 days. I'm still not wrapping my head around it for some reason. You say so.
It's always been 15.
Well, I know it has been 15 days, but not 15 days from I mailed it. I mean, that's what that's what I'm saying. Are you clarifying that, or?
We're saying that it's 15 days from when the letter responding from the Georgia Department of Labor, when that letter
It's written. It's dated.
is dated and it goes into the mailbox, that's the 15 days.
So
If you're the applicant and I'm DOL, and I'm mailing you a response back, you've got 15 days from the time it leaves my office for you to get it, process it, read it, and respond back to me. This is expanding that, if you want to think of it that way, because now I press send on my computer, you have it now. And now you have it instantly and can respond to that. So it's actually expanding the amount of time in response. To add more days is now changing a federal rule because these are federal programs instituted by the state. So we can't start adjusting the number of days of response time. If anything, Chairman McLean, we would be in a situation where we would want to have examined this for the past decade and have said that because of the slow course of standard U.S. Postal Service, we need more time. But we're keeping the number of days the same, and we're shrinking the amount of lag time in getting that response.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my only concern is on line 48. It says, decision of the board shall become final 15 days after the issue is dated printed on the decision. And all I'm saying to you is that if you email it to me on the 10th, and 15 days is the 25th, 1. 2, but if you mailed it to me well, you should have mailed it to me on the 10th, but you didn't mail it to me out of your office until the 14th, those 15 days are the 19th. So I'm just.
That's why you have a postmark.
Yes, that's.
Well, you've got more time under this bill than you did before.
So you're trying to say that I get 15 days from the postmark? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it says from the time it was mailed, that's infers a postmark.
So we're taking away from the date it is mailed, right? So again, going back to the example I just gave you, if I'm the Georgia Department of Labor, then it's 15 days from the day I mail it, not the day you receive it.
Right.
Right.
So if it takes the post office 14 days to get it to you, you had 1 day. This way, you're getting 15 days from the time it was emailed, which, unless you don't check your email for 2 weeks, and you're the one that opted in, so if you opted in, we're assuming you're checking your email. I think y'all are trying to find something that's not in here.
No, I was just reading it, Mr. Chairman.
I know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Casey.
Sorry, this is in reference to Whip Park. I think that the clarification on what you're having a conversation with are on line 16 and 17, where it says that any rule shall be consistent with due process to all interested parties and the purpose and policy of this chapter. So I think it would be fair to say that 15-day window, because it's stated in the sections below, that would create the consistency and not be trying to change it to 10 or 8 or 7 or 6 or whatever.
And that's what our astute policy analyst Brian Hines just said right before you read that.
Okay.
So yes.
So
So we're back to your motion. We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. All those in favor of Senate Bill 191 LC 461093, say aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, you're on the rules.
Thank you for trying to speed up and make government more efficient.
Who's carrying it?
Chad.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, Senator Hickman, come on up.
Y'all's chairs are so much bigger than our chairs.
We work longer and harder. All right, floor's yours.
Yes, sir. Let me find the bill. The bill itself. You got a copy of
You
the bill?
need it, yeah.
Yeah. Here you go, Sean. Got all these notes.
And introduce your guest there.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee members. Thank you for allowing us to be here this morning. We're working Senate Bill 55, LC 550416. And first of all, I want to thank y'all for last year. Y'all supported a bill that we had called Game Bill, Georgia as a model employer for and the purpose of that bill was to recognize that Georgia needed to be a employer to hire people with a physical and mental disability. Remember, we talked about this actually was a workforce development bill. The Game Bill was, because it had about 150,000 people in Georgia that had a physical and mental disability, but only about 25,000 of them actually had a job or was employed. But thank y'all for that, and that is moving forward. We actually in the Senate ante room, we got a lady by the name of Martha who is employed as a result of that bill and works for us about 6 to 8 hours a week, and she is just ecstatic about being there. This bill is the Dignity and Pay Act, Senate Bill 55, and this bill is about stopping certain employers, and those employers are community rehabilitation programs, from paying people with physical and mental disabilities less than federal minimum wage. And you say, how did that happen? Well, we actually have got some organizations that pay people less than $1 an hour. Last year, just a background on this bill, last year Representative Sharon Cooper sponsored this bill with the same language that we've got today, House Bill 1125. It passed the House Industry and Labor Committee, the House floor, and the Senate Insurance and Labor Committee unanimously before running out of time in the Senate rules, as we see that happen on both sides of the building. How this all came about, and a lot of things that we've seen, I've seen since my short time being here, is things that need to be updated. We talk about the QBE all the time. It's 1985, I think, it has not been updated. Well, in this bill, there's a provision in the 1938 Fair Labor Standards Act, which is 93 years ago, that allowed businesses to pay people less than minimum wage. And the whole purpose was because a lot of veterans coming back from service were disabled and they need to have jobs. So there was a provision in the Fair Labor Standards Act, Section 14C, that authorized sub-minimum wages based on perceived productivity differences between workers with disabilities and workers without disabilities. So Section 14C of the Fair Labor Standards Act allows community rehabilitation programs to pay workers with disabilities less than federal minimum wage. While initially created to foster employment opportunities, this provision traps individuals with disabilities in outdated systems that limit their potential and segregate them from competitive workforce. In Georgia, there's several agencies, community rehab programs that use these 14C certificates to pay roughly 250 individuals with either intellectual or developmental disabilities wages as low as 22 cents an hour. And we actually had that particular company testify in our committee meeting in the Senate. Contrary to concerns, ending 14C will not harm other businesses like grocery stores or restaurants that already pay workers with disabilities at above minimum wage. By phasing out this 14C certificate, Georgia can now align with modern employment practices, promote economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities, and strengthen its workforce. We all know that our state, Georgia, which we're so proud of, is one of the strongest economies in the nation, and ensuring that all Georgians receive at least minimum wage is just common sense. Georgia would join 13 other states that have already phased out 14C certificates. Now, we're not going to do this immediately. It's going to be over a 2-year period. Community rehab programs will have 2 years to gradually increase wages to a minimum of $7.25 an hour, which is federal minimum wage. This bill does not shut down shelter workshops or eliminates community rehab programs as employment option. It simply ensures that employees who work there are paid a fair wage. There is ample federal funding and resources to help CRPs transition away from 14C. Ending 14C will not affect individuals' access to Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. Research shows that eliminating sub-minimum wages leads to more integrated and meaningful employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. As I stated earlier, we have a lady by the name of Martha Haythorne in the Senate that is actually a product of the GAIN bill, and she is excited every day. She lifts us up every morning by her smiles. This bill is about basic dignity and fairness, ensuring that people with disabilities are paid at least what we consider the bare minimum for all other employees. And I urge your favorable consideration of this bill. Along with me today is Charlotte Dinsmore, who is Executive Director of Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, and she's the one that helped me work on this bill. And if you got any questions, we'd be glad to take them.
I'd just like to say that we thank Senator Hickman for his support of this bill. We thank you all for hearing it today, and we really appreciate Chairwoman Cooper, who will be carrying it on the House side, hopefully.
Chairman Carpenter.
We've talked about this stuff over the past few years, and I just wanted to thank you for bringing the legislation. Obviously, there's some concern from some people that are afraid these jobs are going to dry up and there's not going to be an opportunity for some of these individuals to continue to work. And there's probably some truth in that for certain individuals. But I think as a whole, as a state, it's important that we show our people that they have value, and it's not 22 cents an hour value. It's at least what we're willing to minimum wage any other individual. As someone who employs like 6 or 7 individuals through my various restaurants, the value of bringing your team together with these individuals is you can't quantify it. So thank you for the legislation. I look forward to supporting it when the time comes.
Thank you.
Who's 26? Chairman Bonner.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Just couple of questions, just noticing this particular handout.
Mm-hmm.
By chance, have any of these organizations been approached to ask why they pay what they pay, or ask if they would be willing to pay more?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So if you'll see on the chart that has the organizations that still use 14C, it's the side with the map on it. I think about 6 of those 8, I don't have it in front of me right now, I apologize. Charlie has a copy, thank you. About 6 of those 8 are already participating in programs to help them transition away. So the little asterisks on each of those signifies whether they're a pilot site under the Subminimum Wage to Competitive Integrated Employment Grant, which is a grant that Governor Kemp's administration applied for. We're receiving federal money to actually support these programs as they transition away, which I hope will kind of address as well what Representative Carpenter mentioned, which is for folks who the workshop might be the most ideal setting and where they enjoy working, this grant will support those organizations to continue to provide employment. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. But have any, like, for instance, has your organization spoken with any of these companies directly to
Yes,
have
sir.
that conversation, and what was the feedback from them?
Yeah, sure.
So I guess what I'm getting at is, are we making them do something they would already do?
That's a great question. Many of the organizations are already shifting away. As you can see, a lot of them have decided by their own volition, they realize, yes, there's no dignity in paying people less than $1 an hour. We're going to start shifting. We're not going to renew our 14C certificates when they come up for renewal. Other organizations are bad actors. We're concerned about the exploitation. If you can see on the flip side of this, you have a list of folks who have already transitioned away because they wanted to, and you can see how much they make and how much their executive directors make. This is all public because they are nonprofits. You can see on that top line there, and this is the organization that testified when we brought this bill before the Senate committee, the executive director makes almost $100,000 more than any other comparable organization. They are the most resistant to moving away from this change, even though they're bringing in more money than anyone else in the state.
So is this,
So to answer your question more simply, some organizations are already moving away, yes. Others are very resistant, and we're concerned that they're continuing to exploit people.
okay,
Yes,
all
sir.
right, thank you.
Mr. President, I think we can also look at this as a proactive measure too, because these are just organizations that are currently doing it, but this bill also will keep future organizations from enacting this 14C, correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Representative McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say thanks very much for the bill too, because I do appreciate us trying to make sure that the abilities that they have that are paid for. And I want to say on lines 34, 35, and 36, I am very glad that we're using the federal wage instead of the Georgia state wage,
Yes, sir.
which is $5.15 an hour, which is something that I hopefully that we as a state would change. But so thank you all very much for at least saying the federal wage
Yes,
and not the state of Georgia wages. Thank you. Thank you all for this.
Representative Holly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Hickman, for being able to carry it, and always grateful. One thing that we always, I remember going to Digital Technology Partners, which is located in Conyers, which has such a program where hires mentally challenged or developmentally disabled persons to be able to work. And what they do there, I know to my colleague's question about whether or not this is the activities that are done at the company, whether this would be a duplicate of activities. It's not. They actually were busy. They were actually busy deconstructing computer mainframes, which is often a very tedious task that most people who are their age group would not do. These are things that, but they're very necessary. They're processing this equipment, and it's providing how much tonnage in electrical equipment and computers devices that end up in the trash would actually can be recycled. So they provided a wealth of opportunities, and I think to your point that the bad actor, which unfortunately is a very successful business, right? And so we always sometimes the bad actor is characterized as somebody who is starving people out and starving their own. Are not making enough money themselves, but they're making enough to where they can be able to take care of the workforce. So thank you for bringing this bill, because hopefully we'll be able to encourage businesses to do right by everyone. And again, thank you, Senator Hickman, for carrying it on. Last thing, we all know that, I'm sorry, if further wrap up, we all know that we accepted in the minority party that sometimes we can be very good champions and bill drafters. So thank you for everyone who's sitting in the audience, support of HR 372 back in 2021, 1125 last year. And thank you. Hopefully this time we'll carry it over because it is a team effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
What part?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Charlotte and Senator, just wanted to also share my thanks and appreciation. And at the appropriate time, I move to pass.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just, a light bulb went off in my head when we were talking. And is it not true that the reality is the people that are paying 22 cents are actually cheating the taxpayers of the United States? Because the majority of these wages, the employee himself loses most of these wages to pay towards what benefits they're getting from the government. So the reality is the taxpayers that are losing on this deal, because most of these people work and it's not much of a net gain for them working. It's only because it only offsets a little bit. They only have a little bit of positive gain from what they take out for the benefits that they received. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Representative Seaball?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Hickman, thank you for bringing the bill. It's appalling to me that our minimum wage in Georgia is $5.15, and it's appalling to me that our federal minimum wage is $7.25 when the poverty level is around $7.52 an hour. So I appreciate you bringing the bill, but what specific workforce development programs or employer incentives does this bill incorporate to ensure that workers with disability are successful in the transition into competitive integrated employment?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So this bill alone does not include any sort of provisions for that training. That training already exists. So UGA has a program called Advancing Employment. They have been doing this work for years and they actually helped craft the bill. And they are in contact with all of the remaining 8 organizations that still use this to help them with that transition process. So the work is already happening, so we felt no need to codify it in this bill.
So my initial concern was that some of these employers that are employing folks with disability, and disability is a big word. You have physical and mental disabilities, and I know those are 2 separate situations, but that they may stop hiring these folks. But it appears that some of these other states where this has been eliminated, that has not been the case. Is that your understanding?
That's correct. And if I may add, these are not your traditional businesses. These are community rehabilitation programs. So they are partially Medicaid funded, many of them. So they have to take the individuals in terms of they are already providing services for them through Medicaid. And so this work that they're doing on the side, these workshops are not necessarily your traditional employment. They're already working there with them as recipients of this rehabilitation services they're providing. So it won't be a case of you're fired, we can't hire you anymore. It will be a case of this is how much we need to reimburse you for the work you're already doing as being a part of this community rehabilitation program.
All right, and one more question.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the Tommy Nova Center, which is
Yes,
in
sir.
Cobb County,
Yeah.
which I represent a portion of that. And they do a wonderful job
Fantastic.
with the disabled workers. And I don't believe that they use any of these certificates for their program. So they've been successful for many, many years. And I think that there's a national trend to do away with this program. So, Senator Hickman, thank you for bringing the bill.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The CEO of Tommy Nova Center is actually on our council at the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, and you're absolutely right, transitioned away from this model years ago and have seen great success in finding people real jobs for real wages in the community.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
we've got 3 people signed up, and if you didn't sign up, we'll still give you an opportunity. Leah Soller, come on up. Yeah, let them use you can just slide it over, yeah. Give us your name and
Hi, my name is Leah Solar. I work with Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, and last year I had the opportunity to be Chair Cooper's intern and help her with this bill last year. But that wasn't my first introduction to the 14C certificates. I moonlight as a manager at a movie theater, and we had a disabled employee that told me about her job before the theater. Way back when for-profit companies could benefit from these 14C certificates, she worked at Goodwill. And she talked about how her manager would look over her shoulder and time her to see exactly how many shirts she could fold and how many clothes she could hang up in a certain amount of time, and then would pay her based off of that. And she and I actually share the same physical disability, and I realized during that conversation that she and I would have worked at roughly the same rate as each other, but because she had an intellectual disability, she was able to get paid a fraction of what I would have been paid in that position. Thankfully, she decided that she could do better, started working at the theater that I work at, and became a staple of the theater. She saw every movie that came out, so she could tell you exactly if she thought the movie was good. She had regulars that would come when she was on shift so that they could ask her what movies were worth watching. She worked rain or shine 365 days a year. And she worked for a decade as a staple of the theater. And she went from being told that her work was worth a fraction of what her coworkers were to making $14 an hour, working 365 days a year. And having people bring people to the theater because they would come to see her. I actually did a little bit of math, and people at these vocational rehab facilities make as little as 22 cents an hour, which is 3% of the minimum wage. And it's not dignified to go into work and to do a day's work and then get told that your effort is worth 3% of what the federal minimum wage declares should be the lowest. And hopefully Georgia will be the next state to completely phase out this program. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Cheryl Arnold. We've also got the podium if anybody wants to do that. Go ahead. Tell us who you are.
This is my first time, so just bear with me for a second.
We will not haze you.
Please, I've been teaching for years for everybody else to do this. But this is how strongly I feel about this today, and thank y'all for listening to me. I really do appreciate it. My name is Cheryl Arno, and I'm the Executive Director of the Down Syndrome Association of Atlanta, and I couldn't be more proud to be here today. I've been doing this for 33 years. I've been advocating for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and it's certainly it's been my life's love. Just a little bit of background is I used to run a day program that we had a component of a workshop, and we decided it had to be 25 years ago. I know that because that's how old my son is. We decided that it wasn't going to be right. I didn't understand why we were paying people a penny on the dollar to stuff envelopes and things like that. It just didn't feel right. So we were able to move on. We didn't shut down. We got people in the community. We got people jobs with living wages. And that was what was important to us even 25 years ago. And what I always said is if we know better, we're going to do better, right? So we live to tell that story. But what I'm here to tell you about today is a very dear friend of mine. His name is Bradley Carlisle. I've known him since he was 2, since I started in the field. And we lost track for a while, and then we reconnected in D.C., and it happened to be, we had a walk on Washington. It was a day on the Hill where individuals with Down syndrome with the National Down Syndrome Society went to go meet with their legislators to talk about different issues. This was one of the issues we were discussing. So this is not new to me. This is something I've been passionate about for a long time. And Bradley had never worked. Bradley lived in a host home, and it was kind of all for one and one for all. He was never given the opportunity to work. And he decided, as we were discussing this with everybody, we actually got to meet the wonderful John Lewis, but he decided then and there that he wanted more. But there was a theater program, I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but if you haven't, you should. It's at the Marcus Jewish Community Center. It's called Habima Theater, and it's a production of individuals with intellectual disabilities. And when I was telling Bradley about this, because he said he wanted to be in the theater, he said to his mom that he wanted it then and now. And it became our mission to get Bradley what he wanted. So he lived in sort of the South, and so we're up in Dunwoody, and he wasn't going to have that opportunity, so I allowed Bradley to live with me during the theater production, so he could feel a part of the community and be he wanted to be an actor. That's all he wanted to do. And we know how sometimes it's not so easy to make a living as an actor, right? But this is what he wanted to do, so we sought to make it happen. So through that, Bradley came into the theater. He got to star in Mamma Mia, and I can't tell you, I still can't listen to that song to this day. But he fell in love with the theater, and then he felt he wanted more. He wanted to work. He wanted to live in the community. He wanted to live by himself. He didn't want to live with an adult anymore. And we, again, worked to make that happen. It was so important in his life. So today, to fast forward, he's now living with a roommate, his best friend, up the road from me. He's in the theater program. Again, if you don't know, they are now in production, Fiddler on the Roof. So we had to build those skills. It didn't happen overnight. We certainly worked towards it. Bradley actually lived with me for a while, so we got used to he got used to living on his own because he had never done laundry. He had never cooked. He bellied up to my bard the first night he was there and said, what's for dinner? And I said, I don't know. What are you making? And so we had to teach him what it was to feel, to be independent. So now he's very active in his theater program. He works a job. He's making $15 an hour. This is real work. If he wasn't the greeter or the host, they would hire somebody else, and they pay him $15 an hour. Now the key behind that, though, is that Bradley couldn't live independently if he didn't have this job. His Social Security pays for his apartment and his utilities. It would leave him with $100 a month to eat, and he does like to eat. He wants to eat, and he wants to go to other theater programs and be a part of the community. If he didn't have this $15 an hour, he would not be able to do that. So he feels valued, he's living independently, and he's living, I assure you, y'all should all want the kind of life that Bradley's living right now. What I want to end with is that Bradley has not only become a great actor, but this last year he became the first Santa with Down syndrome. He had over 13,000 hits, whatever, on TikTok. I don't know. But it's the first that we know of in our community where he is Santa Claus. And when I tell you it wasn't necessarily important to the children. Did the children really know? Because we had them, and I have pictures, we had them dressed up so beautifully as Santa Claus. But what it said to the parents is that adults or children with Down syndrome should be valued in our community. And it's been an amazing transition. And what I want to end with is when we all know better, we do better. And I thank y'all for listening to me today.
Thank you. Charlie, come on up.
Oh, I can. Thank you. It's a heavy chair.
Parallel parking is not my specialty, y'all. I apologize. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee members. I want to say thank you so much for hearing this bill. Senate Bill 55 is...
Yeah, tell us who you are.
I am so sorry. I apologize. I got so wrapped up.
I know.
My name is Charlie Miller. I am the Legislative Advocacy Director at the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. And I think I've camped out in every single one of y'all's offices at one point during my work here. I obviously am a person with disability, but this is a passion of mine. Not only disability work, but employment work for people with disabilities. I am so excited that y'all are hearing Senate Bill 55 today, and I am looking forward to a really good vote today. I wanna just say, and I wanna thank Senator Hickman for bringing this bill. When I first started working in my life, originally I was on Social Security and disability income, which that's what everyone thought that was the path. And me, my dad, and my mama all decided I wanted to work. And so my first job, and some of y'all may know, was at a car dealership. Y'all, I love selling cars. It is so much. I could talk to a brick wall if I had to. I realized this. But, yes, sir. But I also, when I got my first paycheck, I went home excited to show my mom and dad. And I realized, why am I paying Texas? All these items. It turns out it was taxes I was paying. I had no idea what that was because I was fresh out of high school. And my dad and my mother helped me understand my employment track, where I wanted to be. And I still love selling cars. If anyone needs a Honda, let me know. I can sell you one. But I knew my passion was the disability community and advocating for my community. I am here, obviously, as the legislative liaison, but also as a proud member of the disability community. This state has been a leader in our community. We have one of the first accessible beaches in the state down in Jekyll Island. We now have an organization through DNR that helps people with disabilities go out and do hiking trails. I have never been on a hiking trail, but I love hunting, and I was able to go and do a deer hunt that time through DNR. The state has shown it is a leader in the disability community. And now we have the opportunity to be a leader in the employment for people with disabilities. So I want to thank y'all very much, and I look forward to a wonderful vote and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Stay at the mic. Tell your dad hello, and we'll miss him. This is the third bill you and I have worked on in this committee. This is a lot better than workers' comp stuff. But I know Whip Park asked, but I'm gonna let you do something we did years back. I'll let you make the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna mess it up. Mr. Chairman, I wish to make a motion for this bill to do pass.
Okay, and that is Senate Bill 55, LC 550416. Many seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. Thank you. Help him get the rules. With that, we're adjourned, and thank y'all for coming. Yep. Okay, thank you.